I'm here today with Steve Berry, who is CEO of the Competitive Carriers Association. How are you, Steve?
Just fine, Kelly. Thank you for having me. Enjoy seeing your face.
It's good to see you too, and it's nice to catch up. There's actually a lot going on right now, so I'm ready to get into it. I know CCA is tracking a lot of important topics right now. I wanted to cover some of those. I'm sure there will be lots more discussion around these topics at the upcoming annual convention. So, but let's go ahead and maybe start with spectrum. We recently wrapped up the CBRS auction, and there's actually a lot more mid-band spectrum in the offing. We've got the C-band auction set for December. We're seeing some moves around 3.45 to 3.55 with the FCC set to vote on that later this month. How are your carrier members thinking about potentially putting some of the spectrum to work as they gradually improve 4G and look to 5G?
You're right. They're excited about this opportunity. CCA was very active in working with the FCC, to structure the CBRS spectrum auction so that small carriers could bid and win. And when they did, I think we had 228 winning bidders. They won over 20,000 licenses, raising $4.5 billion for the U.S. Treasury. And many CCA members were successful bidders and winners in that license. So they're very excited about putting that to work in their networks immediately. And like you said, the C-band is up next, critically important. That's one that we worked very hard on. As you know, we were strongly in favor of a public auction. We wanted 300 megahertz or more in the C-band. And it's going to be a critical element in the deployment of 5G spectrum. And because of its location, I think it's going to be compatible to be, aggregated with the other two bands that you mentioned, the 345 and the 355 gigahertz spectrum, which, very thankful that the administration and FCC immediately began work on that. We haven't gotten the C-band down yet, but I think we're going to make the auction date, and we felt like we did a pretty good job of ensuring that we have usable C-band spectrum coming to market as soon as the 5G services are available. So, that with the 345 and 355 is a really nice slice of spectrum. We really hope that, as was sort of provided under the Mobile Now Act, which is a couple of years ago, that we can actually address the 3.1 through the 355 going forward. So that's a nice swath of spectrum in the mid-range, which historically the U.S. has been a little deficient in the mid-range spectrum, and this is going to be critical, especially because in rural America it's going to travel further and provide more capacity. So we're looking forward to all those activities. You're right; it's been very, very busy at the FCC and on the Hill.
So I also wanted to catch up a little bit on what's going on with the Secure and Trusted Communications Networks Act. That was passed last year, along with a reimbursement program that's waiting for funding. So maybe you could give us an idea of the extent to which your membership is using affected network gear, and sort of what the process of rip and replace looks like in terms of process, timeline. Any insights there?
This is an issue that we've been working hard and long on for some time. We have about a dozen plus members that have the covered equipment in their network. And so they're really focused on this. And as we move closer to a program that the FCC would actually manage, we're looking at, okay, what are the next steps? How do we, in fact, remove this, covered equipment from the networks? And we've been very fortunate to have, good relationship with many of the administration policymakers. I don't know if you remember, we did a series of 3 meetings throughout the United States with CISA, the Homeland Security Cyber Group, It was also joined by NTIA and FCC, and is basically a good opportunity to bring the government's message to all of our carriers and identify the policy issues and the real issues at stake. And then obviously we signed the secure and trusted into law after we'd had these meetings. So our members had some heads up, and they knew that we needed to get going on this. And the one thing the act did is it also identifies that these small carriers really can't afford to make any bad decisions about transferring out of covered equipment. So the government also has to, under the act, the government should identify those equipment providers, or that equipment that is approved, or it's at least on a list of replacements, both physical and software equipment, that they can safely, transition to. So we hope that will be coming forward. There's been a lot of discussion on ORAN and ORAN companies, and we're focused on that. Hopefully that's a cost saving opportunity for many of the small carriers. So as we move down that road, you're looking ahead to, will the permitting process allow for very quick transition? And we've called it the rip and replace, but as you know, we don't want any of the consumers, our customers in rural America, to go without service. So it's really sort of replace and then rip the affected and covered equipment out of the network. So it's going to be complicated, but I think we're working hard at trying to identify where do we begin, and we hope that we can work with the FCC and the 8 federal agencies to in fact clarify where is a good starting point.
Can we talk a little bit about the reimbursement funding that's associated with that? So I think $2 billion is the figure that commonly gets mentioned. I know, if I remember correctly, Chairman Ajit Pai had asked for some more at some point, I think as part of some coronavirus funding, and I'm not sure exactly what happened there. But based on conversations with your membership, is that enough? Do you have any sense of when that money might be allocated or distributed?
Yeah, that's a big question that all of our carriers were asking. Pai did ask for $2 billion earlier to the Appropriations Committee when they asked, well, how much it's going to take. And since then, obviously, there was a requirement for all the carriers that are covered to report to the FCC not only the coverage, but many of them also shared with them their estimate of what it would cost to replace. So Pai came up with a $1.89 billion, $1.8937 billion potential replacement cost for covered equipment in telecommunications networks. Of the covered providers that were identified under the Secure and Trusted Networks Act, that's about a $1.6, $1.7 billion. In other words, all those carriers under 2 million subscribers. So, obviously, the federal government wants to get all the equipment out of the networks. And I think this 2 weeks ago, I think the FCC indicated that they had identified over 55 telecommunication providers that had some covered elements in their network. So I think we've gotten a little better number on, what the totality of it could be. And, it's sort of like the 600 megahertz auction in many respects. The government says, here's a policy directive we want to achieve, and the government needs to fund it adequately to do that. And I think, Pai's original, estimate of the $2 billion was pretty good estimate. And as we move down this road, I think they may find other equipment in other networks and other types of fixed services that we don't know about. And when that happens, I think the government should, like we did in the 600 megahertz, step up to the plate and say, okay, we need to ensure that there's some money available for, that type of reimbursement also. So, You asked the question when. Um, we've been on the precipice of legislative language on several times, coupled with the COVID-19 relief packages. But the good thing is it's been in the House and it's been in the Senate bills. So we do have a sort of a consensus there of a placeholder. And right now you are reading the tea leaves just like myself. It looks like you may have a continuation of funding for the federal government that's quote unquote clean. At least that's what Chairman Shelby wants. And then hopefully, maybe by the end of the next month, hopefully before the end of the year, we will have a bill, maybe a COVID bill that actually includes this important element of network security. And like you said, we have the bill, we have the direction, we just don't have the money. So now it's time for Congress to step up and say, yes, here's the appropriated amount to put in the fund. And when that happens, I think we're going to see a lot of action very quickly. And our carriers are getting ready for that internally as we speak.
One of the other things that several members of Congress have been apparently interested in lately is OpenRAN, and I think Rip and Replace does sort of raise some questions there around potential opportunities. Incumbent trusted vendors are eyeing this business as a smaller smaller and US based companies play in the space. What's your take? Is OpenRAN technology mature enough and easy enough to consume to make a near-term difference to CCA operator members? And what considerations are top of mind when you're picking between integrated technology from incumbent vendors, versus disaggregated technologies from multiple vendors? There's a lot of pieces that go into those decisions.
Complicating it all is that every network is different. There's not one size fits all, and there's different solutions for every network because of the diversity of their equipment and their software. So you sort of have to go into each one of them and say, okay, if you're a legacy network, say you have one of the big two or three company cores, and will that talk to and operate under a different RAN solutions, ORAN solutions? And people are feeling that out right now. It's brand new. We do have one carrier in CCA that actually was very successful in deploying an ORAN virtualized portions of their network, and they're continuing that inland cellular. The part of the problem is systems integrator or systems integrators are sort of key to how do you get all the different slices of virtualized components together. What's the magic sauce that allows them to talk to one another? And we've been watching it with the largest carriers, AT&T and Verizon. Dish is in a really unique position. We've been talking to them a lot. They're going to do a 5G standalone greenfield build, and they're showing significant savings across the board. So many of our smaller carriers that have legacy networks, it just sort of like the secure and trusted issue. As you pull out those elements in your network, you have to maintain connectivity and you have to transition. It's sort of replace and then rip again. Even if you're switching from a 4G LTE VoLTE system to a true assisted or standalone 5G network. So there's a lot of positives there, and we hope that the ORAN, in fact, shows better promise on solutions for legacy networks going forward. We've been fortunate enough during this last 4 months of the COVID crisis. Many of the ORAN companies have joined CCA. So we've added, we had Mavenir, we had Parallel, we have Airspan, we have, Rakuten, Altistar, Tesco is joined. They're part of a systems integrator, as well as WWT, and then Facebook is bringing in a TIP, the Technology Infrastructure Project. So everyone's focusing on the small carriers because we may be the first to actually be able to jump in to leapfrog into a 5G standalone networks. And so the goal is, let's get as much information as we can. We hope that Dish, with their announcement, Charlie Ergen said, "Hey, I want to partner with small carriers. I don't have to build out in areas where someone else already has built and wants to partner with me." So hopefully they're going to be able to share with our small carriers in the hopefully near future the types of deployment scenarios they're going to have in their network, and so that they can potentially be either duplicated, or at least networks could be built that are compatible with a Dish network, so that they have roaming opportunities and nationwide coverage opportunities, even though they may be a regional carrier.
So you brought up COVID, and I want to talk about that sort of in the context of rural broadband, rural service, because the FCC has been putting a lot of focus on that lately. They adopted an NPRM to set up the 5G Fund for Rural America. That makes available up to $9 billion, and I believe that's over 10 years, to ensure that opportunities opened up by 5G are equitable. They're available in both in rural areas and in hopefully an equitable way that they are in urban areas. I think this was always important, but based on your conversations with policymakers and your members, I have to think that COVID-19 has really put into perspective why it's important and pressing to close the digital divide.
Every member of Congress, I was on a call the other day with a member of Congress, and they said, "Listen, I've been working for almost a decade to get broadband maps, to get good data that corresponds with what I know is happening on the ground." So it's truly a challenge that has a lot of focus in Congress right now. And I'm very proud of our members. I mean, we got good examples. Many of our members have gone above and beyond, literally deploying within a week or 2 weeks wireless networks to help respond to the schools and libraries and hospitals and others that need connectivity. And some of the STA, policies that the FCC has allowed some of these carriers to literally stand up capability when none existed before, because they were able to open up their networks using additional spectrum. So we learned a lot of good lessons there. We hope that we can continue down that path and find better ways to get connectivity. I'm wireless biased, as you know, and what we're found in the COVID-19 is one of the best ways and the quickest ways to get connectivity is through wireless, either fixed wireless or wireless. Yes, we all want a gigabit network, and we all would probably like to see, fiber as close to that final user as possible. But fiber takes a long time, and it is a process. This building a network is always a process. So you once you get connectivity, you're always going to want more and bigger and better and faster. And my thought is, let's get the data, the maps correct. Let's find out where we have and do not have connectivity. And then let's get connectivity, and then let's build on that. And unfortunately, it's taking a heck of a long time to get the FCC to understand that the highest priority with the rural area is connectivity. I mean, yeah, 25 megs down and 5 megs up is great. But if you have no megs down and no megs up, it's a big difference to have connectivity. So that's our goal, and that's what we hope the FCC will do, and as it's looking at the mapping challenge going forward. we just have a different point of view. It can be done quicker, and it can be done um, more simultaneous with the funding available. And the other thing is $9 billion over 10 years. That's great. I'm not saying, but who says that $9 billion over 10 years or over 2 years is enough? So we need to keep our minds open as to how far do you want to go in ensuring connectivity, and what are what's the ultimate goal of a definition of a broadband connectivity as we move down this road.
You and I have talked about this before. I think it's a topic that deserves some more discussion because it's been such an issue. A big part of how you direct funding, where you direct funding, is based on maps that I think are universally acknowledged to be less than accurate. So the FCC, there was the Broadband Data Act, and the FCC was tasked with sourcing and auditing maps and information that goes into them. It seems like there's multiple things going on that are trying to address this. So, what are your expectations as the FCC works through the process with service providers? How long do you think it will take to establish an accurate baseline and then build on that by investing in connectivity where the need is most accurate? I mean, I think we see even with the Rural 5G Fund and the interplay with that and the RDOF, there's some allowances for when data might be available, but it's sort of a chicken and an egg question there of, what comes first, the funding or the data?
The telecommunications world has been on the wrong end, the receiving end. Going back to 2006, 7, and 8, we had two very robust funding programs that most people will now say, we really missed the mark because we had no idea where we should actually send the money and the funds. So I think we have an opportunity here to be very clear about the standardization of the data and information that we're requesting. And we just filed comments the other day with the FCC on the third round of comments there for the data broadband map. And the types of the types of variables are so different in the wireless world than they are in the wireline world, that if they follow some of our guidance that we've been trying to suggest, for years, which Congress, quite frankly, when you look at the Data Broadband Act, that was a highly specific, direction enacted by Congress, and Congress normally doesn't get that detailed in the types of solutions they are asking the FCC to look at. So I think the FCC is doing the right thing by asking us where we think the best data acquisition points are, all the variables. It's different in urban, suburban area than rural areas. The morphology of the signals are totally different, and you need to understand that when you start putting that map together. And the other thing that would make it shorten the time frame is if the maps are clear and accurate, then it's going to shorten the challenge period. And what we've learned in previous 2-3 examples is no amount of time or treasure is going to be sufficient to remedy a totally inaccurate map. So Congress is focused on this. Like I said, I was on a call just the other day with a member of the House, and he's all over this. I mean, he knew exactly where the FCC was on this. So I hope we're going to get accurate numbers, and then hopefully we can begin the process. Pai testified himself at the Appropriations Committee 6 months ago and said that he thought it was months, not years. Well, he said that before the FCC's staff came out and said, oh, it could take 3 years. Well, we have an A and a B solution now. And I think the B solution is the more sensible approach to this clear, specific data points for broadband availability. And then if we go down that route, I think everyone is going to be cooperative in ensuring that we do it as quickly as possible. So, I mean, why spend the majority of a $9 billion on solutions or on areas that we have no idea that they actually provide the solution?
Hopefully that will keep, I guess we'll have to see how that resolves itself. But so one of the things that is coming up is CCA's annual convention. You guys are starting October 21st and all virtual. So there is an agenda available online, lots of good topics. Maybe you can take us through some of the highlights of the programming. I know 5G is obviously top of mind sort of across the industry right now, but that doesn't mean 4G is going away. So talk a little bit about how CCA is striking a balance between forward-looking discussions and maybe things that are potentially higher priority short-term goals around things like VoLTE, IMS, RCS. How are you guys balancing that?
Thank you for raising the issue of the virtual show. And we are pleased that you guys are joining us in that effort, and we'll be transmitting the keynote sessions for that event. And yes, it's historical for us. We've never done this before, but I must admit, with this type of planning, we're working on a really good panel of presentations across the board. Senator Wicker has already agreed to make a presentation, and Commissioner Carr is going to be front and center with one of the keynotes. Our Pinnacle sponsors are all coming to the table and bringing senior advisors slash executives to the table. And you're right, 5G is going to be huge. We've got several ORAN companies that want to talk about ORAN and what the solution is and how it's going to be deployed and what are the needs. And we even have one breakout session on the very thing that you mentioned is how do you sell 4G technology and 4G network services when everyone is talking about a 5G world. And in rural America, everyone knows that 5G is a technology with low latency. It doesn't necessarily mean that it has a higher capacity, especially if you're on a lower band. Say you're on 600 megahertz band. Yes, it gets great, configuration and coverage, but it's not on the speeds. It's not that different from some of the 4G, LTE, VoLTE advanced. So how do you migrate onto that? And then of course, what do you do with your devices? How do devices operate on 4G and 5G? And when are you going to have devices that are all 5G? So the business plan and some of the concepts that our carriers are using to ensure that they have this continuity of services, but they also give the customer in rural America that 5G capability is going to be, that's a transition that everyone has to make. And it seems like 4G came, but it's not gone. Most people will tell you we got another decade of 4G capability out there, but everyone wants to get to a 5G. The hype on the 5G. Everyone wants to get to a 5G type of service, and that's where ORAN, I think, will bring a lot of unique type of capabilities to these smaller carriers, because most of them will go into a 4G slash 5G assisted 5G before they go into a 5G standalone network. So we're going to have a lot of discussion about that, and hopefully our carriers, the CTOs, are going to have some. I'm not an engineer, but I think they're going to have a lot of discussions, very detailed discussions in these breakout sessions. So yeah, we're really excited about the process, and with it, we're going to try to pack all these things together in one day, and then it's going to be recorded, and we'll make that available for the next several months. And that's the other thing is, since it's virtual, there's there's no registration cost for people that want to come and join. So we hope that we'll get even a broader crowd of carriers. You know, I've always said if you're a small carrier, it doesn't matter if you're in Canada or a Pacific Island or Latin America or Africa, small carriers have the same problems no matter where they are. We hope we're going to be able to bring some of those solutions to the light for everyone.
Exciting stuff. We're looking forward to joining you guys on October 21st then. And that sort of runs through all the questions that I had today, Steve. Thank you so much for taking the time to catch up with us.
Oh my goodness, thank you, and thanks for giving us an opportunity to talk about the virtual show. I'm very hopeful that we're going to get a lot of interest, high level interest in the topics, and hopefully the subject matter is going to be everything that you identified here in more detail and depth. So thank you.